for it.
Hello and welcome to Highlife Music Deconstructed, a 5-part series where we delve into the origins of Ghanaian highlife. We explore the origins of the sound, how the music was shaped, and the impact it had and still has today. My name is Abena Serwaa, and I'm the founder of AKADi magazine, an online culture publication designed to connect Ghanaians in the diaspora to the motherland. I'm joined by Bernard Johnson-Tackie to my left.
Hello. Yes.
He's the creative director of the GoldenStool project. He's also an avid record collector, a vinyl record collector. He's an archivist and he's also a DJ. So behind you'll see some of his posters for his gigs that he's done. He's also known in circles as Volta 45. So Bernard will be taking us on a whistle-stop tour on the history of Ghanaian highlife. And today he's going to share a little bit with us today about the origins. So welcome, Bernard.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyway, my name is Bernard. I am a DJ and a record collector and sort of an avid fan of highlife and an avid fan of Ghanaian culture. I work with the GoldenStool project, or for the GoldenStool project, and our main aim is to provide a viable platform for the development, encouragement, and promotion of the Ghanaian arts, and that is what we do essentially.
So Bernard, tell us why highlife. Why are you so passionate about it?
I think highlife in general is the life and soul of the Ghanaian person. I mean, it's an intricate part of our culture. It's actually the heartbeat of Ghanaian music, and I think I have been sort of listening to highlife ever since I was born. So that innate love for highlife, I think, is more inborn more than anything else.
And what strikes me about you is your actual focus on vinyl records as opposed to other types of, like CDs or tapes and stuff. So tell us, why is there sort of a resurgence in African music now?
I think African music and vinyl, I mean, I like vinyl personally because I think it sounds, in terms of a sound medium, it sounds fantastic. And I think I get more for my money because once I buy a record, I get the sleeve, I get the liner notes, and I get everything else that comes with it. And in terms of the resurgence, yes, I mean, people see it now as a sort of a fashionable thing to do, to go record shopping.
Yes, definitely. So today what you'll be doing is talking us through the origins of highlife, but this will be over 5 episodes. So over a number of weeks, we'll be exploring the different generations of highlife music. So what can we expect? Could you give us a summary?
Yeah. I mean, to make it easy, I think I have spread it into 5 even categories. I know 5 is a lot, but if I break it down, probably it'd make more sense. So we're going to look at the first generation. So the first generation, we are basically looking at the period between the 1900s and 1940s. So this was when Ghanaian contemporary music was in its infancy, and we'll be looking at musicians like Jacob Sam and the Kumasi trio, Kwaa Mensa and his Fanti trio, amongst others. And we'll talk about traditional music as well and how it actually fed into mainstream sort of Ghanaian music. The second generation would be the period just probably between late 40s to sort of early 60s.
So we're going to be, part of that will be independence, Ghanaian independence in between.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we'll be talking about the era of the big bands. So where you had the Ramblers, you had the Broadway dance band. But at that point in time, one thing we should remember is that highlife at that point in time sort of split into 2 streams. So you had the dance bands.
Okay.
These were the sort of, I'd say, more schooled, who played in dance halls and sort of grand ballrooms, and you had the guitar bands who were more or less the sort of less fortunate. So there's a bit of an elitism aspect that we'll also touch upon.
Okay.
So and then we move on to the fourth generation, and the fourth generation would sort of, no, actually the third. Beg your pardon. The third generation would probably begin from the late 60s, so let's say 69 to about 80, 81, just before the revolution. So that is when, to me, that's the most exciting part, because that is when sort of Ghanaian musicians started sort of absorbing things from all over the world. So be it Afro-Latin, funk from America, even Congolese music. So you're looking at bands like Vis-a-Vis, KK's number 2, Kwame Asare dad.
Yay.
Alaji K. Frimpong, in terms of guitar bands, Akwaboa and Alex Kunedu, all those people were from that era. And then from the fourth generation, we'll be looking at post-revolution. So that is when the sound basically changed. The way the sound was produced totally changed, just because nightlife was totally curtailed at that point in time.
So that's around the time when we had the curfews in Ghana.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that was Bugger Highlife.
Oh, my favourite.
Okay.
Why did you do that?
Well, I mean, Bugger Highlife, I have slight reservations about Bugger Highlife, but yes, who am I?
How can you have slight that is what I grew up on. I hope my dad's watching, because it's because of him that I love Highlife music, and Bugger Highlife was the soundtrack to my childhood.
Exactly. So yes, and then finally we'll be talking about the fifth generation. So with the fifth generation, we'll be looking at younger, more prolific Ghanaian musicians who still play Highlife, using the rudimentary composition ways. And more importantly, they play live, you know. And I think some of them have had really good tours in Europe. Santrophy comes to mind, number one.
Big up to them.
Like the band of the moment.
Yes.
You've got Checheku in France, who sort of, another young trailblazer who's still sticking to the old rudiment. So that is it for the 5 generations. I know it's a lot, but once we start sort of delving into things, I am sure that it would all sort of start falling into place.
Yeah, so I hope you can, stick with us over coming weeks. There's a lot to learn, and it's really fascinating. I just wanted to say as a disclaimer that this is live streaming. So if you hear screaming children or ice cream vans or, I don't know, car alarms going off, it's because we're doing this live, adds to the authenticity. So just going back to this first episode that we're doing, just as a run through, you'll be talking to us about the origins. So we're starting from the 1900s, and I guess we'll be looking at traditional folkloric music.
Yep.
And how that music formed the basis for early Highlife. We'll also, I guess, be looking at, this is quite interesting for me, the role of women in Highlife. Also, the influences from outside of Ghana and how that shaped the music. We'll be looking at some of the structure that was in place to develop the sound and produce the early records that we have. And then finally looking at some of the key players in the first gen.
Yeah.
So without further ado, let's start.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's a lot.
Yes,
yeah,
it is.
Let's start.
Yes. So could you talk to us about the music, the folkloric, I can't even say it. Folkloric is what I'm trying to say, music. Yeah. And why was it important in Ghana? Why is music important?
Yeah, I mean, talking about the importance of music is an integral part of every human being, I think. I think if so long as you're alive and you're breathing, you should like some form of music.
Yeah.
Music in the African Ghanaian society is really, really important. First of all, music was used as a medium of entertainment.
Yeah.
Whenever there was a gathering, whenever there was a celebration, whenever there was a festival, music always played an integral part in all these social gatherings, because essentially it made people happy. It made people sort of you forget your problems and you dance.
So therapy.
You know, yes, in that sense, it's therapeutic as well. So we can say that is sort of the first importance of music in the Ghanaian society. The second one is that music was used as a medium of communication. Way before we had any form of electronic or written forms of communication, i.e. letters, messages were passed within communities or from one community to the other via the power of the drum. So what would happen is, in every society, you had these clans or these special families that were trained in the art of playing music, and they're mostly royals. In the Senegalese society, or maybe if you go to Mali, we refer to them as the griots.
Okay, I know that word.
Yeah, they are the griots. So drums were used in the sense that these sort of highly trained spiritual men or people would be able to play certain phrases or certain rhythm patterns on the drum. And the listening party could then decipher what that meant.
Wow.
And in certain instances, they could respond playing a particular rhythm. So, yes, they could have used runners, but it was more effective
Yeah.
to use the drum.
So was that like sort of a Morse code?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. It was Morse code because you should be able to have the ability to sort of decipher what those rhythms meant in terms of, we're having a party tonight, please come.
Okay.
You know, so it was more or less like the Instagram of today.
I like that. Started first in Ghana, everyone.
It was more or less like the Instagram of today, and it was effective in times of strife, in times of celebration. That was the easiest way to sort of get communication passed across.
Okay.
The third importance of music in the Ghanaian society is that music was used in traditional religious ceremonies. You know, I remember us having this conversation, and I said fetish priest, and like, no, we can't use fetish priest. We'd say traditional religion, because I think we had our own religion before we had the Bible or whatever else that we got given.
Yeah.
In the sense that music in itself was quite important during religious ceremonies. Music was used as a medium to sort of channel into the spirit world. If you go to, for instance, an Okomfo's house, and he wants to consult his gods, he always sings.
Yeah, that's true.
I've been to one, so
yeah,
I know.
Yeah. No,
He always sings. In the same way, if you look at something like, you take the Ga traditional parlance, and you know, in August, there is the Homowo Festival.
Yes.
And that same time that festival is celebrated, we have a celebration for twins.
What's that called?
It's called Yaa. So that's a celebration for twins. And part of this celebration involves a long procession.
Okay.
From maybe the house of the traditional religious, the traditional sort of religious leader or the traditional priest, and there's a procession all the way to a river. And they have to carry these herbs that are sort of filled with all sort of herbs, and there's a blessing from the traditional priest, and they have to symbolically take it down to the river to sort of let go.
Yeah.
And it's accompanied by wild, frenzied drumming, you know, like bare-chested men with like really bulging eyes, sort of like almost possessed in a trance. And that same effect is passed on to those twins carrying their vessels. So they go into a trance, and it gets really frenzied to the extent that you have to get somebody to actually hold them. Other than that, they sort of run off. So that is also, to me, I think that is like really important, because music and spiritism, you can't separate the two. And in a Ghanaian society, or in an African society, that's the case. Music and spiritism sort of go together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So really integral music.
You can't separate music from spiritism. And another point as well is that music can be used, or music in itself is a repository for information. You know, if you look at for instance, the Achami, or let's make it even more. Let's make it simplistic. You were talking about the Yaa Amponsah song.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean when you listen to that song, I'm not very fluent in Chi, but I'm gonna try my best. It goes like, Koko Ikwe. Yasantua Obabesia Okoa Permane, which means that she actually led men.
Yeah.
You know, so that song in itself, that musical substance in itself, is a repository for information. Because tell me, how many centuries has this music been?
Many.
And trust me, you go to Kumasi today, and there's a Kresidai, they still sing that song.
Yeah.
You know, so I think music in itself in the Ghanaian society acts as a repository for information. That is where we store our oral communication.
Our history.
So your history,
Yeah.
social commentary is
Yeah.
history.
Yeah.
You see, so music acts as a sort of a really good repository in the sense that it's oral. So once you start singing the song, someone can know, oh yeah, this and this happened, or there was this figure in the song who was really, really powerful. You know, and then finally, I know music, as you mentioned before, it's therapeutic.
Yeah.
And in the Ghanaian society, music is used a lot, sort of in the therapeutic sense. A simple example: lullabies. I mean, I don't know. I don't remember lullabies because I don't think
You were
my
a baby.
I don't think my parents ever sort of sung me lullabies.
But we know lullabies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is singing. That is music.
Yeah.
So that sort of puts you at ease. It relaxes you.
Yeah.
So that is it. Music is a form in our society. It's a form of therapy. When you're sad, you sing sad songs. There you go.
Or happy songs to make you less sad.
To make you less sad.
Yeah. So do you have an example of maybe the applications that you can?
Yes, I mean in terms of that, I have a record here. One second. This is the dirge of Otumfuose Agyeman Prempeh II. Which way? Is it that one? Oh yeah, there we go. So he was the Asantehene. He was the Asantehene that died in 1970.
Yeah.
And this album was produced by Kwaa Donko. So Kwaa Donko is quite an enigmatic figure in sort of Ghanaian music industry. He was a diplomat. He was an ambassador.
So he lived here in this country in London?
Well, he was actually based in Belgravia.
Oh, okay.
So he was an ambassador I think in the late 60s.
Yeah.
And he decided to sort of jack it
all in and go home.
Go back home. He set up a studio and he actually had a record label called Agoro. Which means Let's Play. And we've got a few sort of like the Wolomai. He was really rootsy. So all the Wolomai albums were on Agoro.
So just explain to our listeners Wolomai.
Oh, the Wolomai. I think we'll talk about the Wolomai when we talk about the role of sort of women in traditional music.
But it's part of Ga heritage, isn't
it? Yes, it is part
That's
of...
all
is part of Ga heritage. So what I'm going to play here is the dirge to Otumfuose Osei Agyeman Prempeh II, who died in 1970. This was produced by Kwaa Donko on his Agoro record label. And this is just an example of how music acts as a repository for information. So if you could bear with me one sec.
Agyeman Okofrobo. Umpenyingere ma David Fegi. Oyoko hine. Papu die wu brempom. Oyoko abuhie mu hine. Aberewaju ako. Ohima. Opokura siri dan pɛgye si ɔma demiri fedui kanyansi Yaa Amponsah nfi Kwaa bra hase mo hene akora mansofo na mansofo ne abohye mfiri bia na no sɛ si ɔma demiri fedui ɔyoko breman esaman Kwaa brempong na mo ako ojampa korɔbɔ sɛ abrewa teki a ne akura afiri ye hema si ɔma demiri fedui atutie hene ɔpɔn agya kyekye ku brempong boyse kofo na yokoni opon ware akye apayin na ofira dankyam na so demiri fedui enyina se hene egeni akyempon akwasi brempong firi kokofu agweso gaban ho agu yokoni ba oki afransa no no mobete nkuru Mensa abohya na enyina se hene so ma demiri fedui mamponten Yaa Amponsah nfi nyedua nan ase Edua kro bo konkron me nkure ka jaje man brempom aka jetia wono brafra hima ba ka jaje o ma demiri fedui okor biye sante kotoko hene demiri fa ajeman bantama osafure dua mankwa etia amankwa konkron gbegbe kurentire sintire so bere ma okum ni peti atopere o ma demiri fedui ajeman asafo akwa wi adante kokuru kwa mofra ne mpanyin turu asafo abiri gesi brempom twum hina Yaa Amponsah mpinana omo ntu akwada si o ma demiri fedui adum asamo no ose akwa se kamere baafo asamo tutu odi akoma kotin si o ma demiri fedui achempem hene okor bi esante kotoko hene ba saben ose kofo ko kira hene ya dombo ache dankwa bireti amu jangna na bireti ni ote sabin ni afiri ya nkonya so ma demiri fedui ki dom hene ya mo ponko brempon na kasin otu afirese na bireti ni firi dankira na buya kuro odisi ka to mprada na nka abia so mpokwa oyoko abohyang ba osei ya brempon odi kidom mo hene anka sin ni so ma demiri fedui aje mango ko frobo anko bia dade akura mpo oti kuro nya die hin so busumi de ni ani abunya nana bafu opegudum nti amo akira kunkwaja tufuo nana ti ma demiri fedui etipin hene ose kwa mbrempom kotoko hene ba firi tete o hene bo hene asuna ba wi ansa so owusu ansa mbrempom nua danzini odi etipin mo hene jo ma demiri fedui ajeman o hene ba kwa ku su brempom asini ya Yaa Amponsah na ma community o ma demiri fedui ma wire hene brempio na ku amwo bo aten brempom ono wi ngo hene mo hene koda abiri wo kundungu na ba bo aten so ma demiri fedui sumankwa hene sumankwa dom fagi abo oji akora bo oji na pamberu o franka akasi di ku ani mu so ma demiri fedui ananda hene ofusu pemu ji abo batafu ji akon so kwabra fochew ampem kofoni osu etuo ku akwantimfi na nam so ma demiri fedui bo kurum ogman kuma ba de bor ba de batu eje hu na tete brempom o dense damre abrewo ji biaso twa benwo firiguom kwa bra hase mo hene brempom akora betu ya wa mafuo di ngampa de boimu ousu bempa brempom so ma demiri fedui kase ba yesi akwan na firi atwa abo ayase bo akini afiri ye na ousu dum brempom so ma demiri fedui.
Wow, that was really enigmatic and really rootsy. I could hear the drums, the adwa. I could hear, a lot of people's names in there. Can you talk to us about what's going on in the track?
Well, I mean, just for the sake of first generation and us looking at traditional music, I think this is as traditional as it gets because this is a funeral dirge for a king who actually lived and died. So I think it's the rawest form of music, and it also goes to depict what I was talking about as music being a repository. Because I listened to this album the first day I got it. I mean, I've had it for years, but I listened to it today again, And I actually realized that through his sort of appellations and how he was going on about things, that Ampofo Entry was the Mamponghene in 1970. I mean, I got to learn something just by listening to this record. So I think it's an important part of our culture, and it's been stored in or captured in oral tradition, which is great.
Yeah. One thing that I liked about it is there's a definite rhythm, like an interplay between the words and the music.
Yeah. I think, I know, it's, to me, I know we spoke about this earlier as well, but to me, this sounds like the earliest form of rapping.
Wow.
No, seriously. I mean, if you listen to sort of the way he speaks in bars, that's how it sounds. It sounds to me like 8 bars and 16 bars, and the words do not necessarily rhyme, but there's something about those words that seems to connect those bars, and I think it was definitely the earliest form of rap music, without a shadow of a doubt.
So you've heard it here. Bernard has said earliest form of rap music in Ghana.
It's a charming appellations.
Yes.
Yes.
Loving it. So, I mean, you've talked to us about the different ways that we consume and use music in Ghana. I'm interested to know how these elements went to form early, what we now call high life.
I think those early greats, if I should put it that way, to them, folk and traditional music was a crucial reference point. You know, they had to refer to those points for initial inspiration for the writing of songs.
Yeah.
And if you look at Ghana as a whole, I mean, we've got so many rhythms and so many sounds. It's just mind-boggling. I mean, part of my project as well that we do at the GoldenStool projects is to be able to record as much traditional music as we can get access to.
Yeah.
But if you look at the sort of the whole composition, I mean, you've got along the coast, you've got the Fantes doing Osibi and Adaha. You've got the Ewes doing Abaja. You've got the Gars doing the Panlogo. You move up north a bit and you go to Kumasi or the Asante region, and you've got Kete and Adowa, and
which we were just listening to.
And exactly, and Apatampa and all those sorts of really driving beats. And you go up north, you've got the really deep, hypnotic, trance-inducing sort of Dagati, Frafra sounds.
Yeah.
You're looking at people like sort of the sounds of like someone who's really popular, like Are You Sober?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You get that sort of really hypnotic sounds much further up you go. So these early composers really drew a lot of inspiration. They drew a lot of sort of immersive inspiration from our traditional sounds, you know. So if people like Jacob Sam, and I mean these are the early ones that we're sort of discussing, and George Aingo, all those people sort of use a lot of folkloric traditional melodies in their compositions.
So at this point, we're talking about indigenous sounds, and I'm interested to know how our music evolved to maybe absorb other sounds from outside.
Yeah, I think if we're moving slightly chronologically, so far we've spoken about traditional music and its importance to our society. We've spoken about how it's influenced up and coming musicians in that era, late 1800s to probably about 1930, 1940. We will sort of look at damn it.
I mean,
hold on. What did you say again?
So I was talking about the influence of people outside of Ghana. So I'm thinking of like sailors, merchants, those types of people.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about what elements changed the traditional sound. Of course, I mean, it was the inception of the guitar probably in the late 1800s, and this was sort of brought into West Africa mainly by Caribbean sailors working on British merchant ships, or the crewmen from Sierra Leone,
Yeah.
who were either working as dock hands or stevedores or probably seamen as well. They actually introduced the guitar and taught the locals how to play using the two style finger picking technique.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I think the inception of the guitar, together with our traditional music, sort of led to the birth of what we refer to as Palmwine music.
Okay. So that's really quite interesting, because I wouldn't have associated Caribbean sailors so early on with influencing, Ghanaian music.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting, not just Caribbean, but also you said the crew
Crewmen,
people
the crew people
from Sierra Leone. Yeah, introducing the guitar. But did we not have a guitar?
I mean,
in Ghana?
traditionally we did have sort of actually stringed instruments.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go up north, there is the kologo.
Yeah.
If you come to the Asante region where you come from,
Yes, I do.
you've got the Serwaa.
Yeah.
So the only difference between the guitar and these sort of stringed local instruments that I've just mentioned is the fact that the guitar had a fret.
What's a fret?
Right.
Well, I don't know. Maybe you know out there, but I don't know. What's the fret?
Well, so the fret is basically the neck of the guitar,
Okay.
where you can actually sort of press together with a corresponding string that you've plucked to get
Yeah.
a particular note or to get a particular sound.
Okay.
So not having a fret on a kologo, for instance, meant that your range of tonality was not so wide. So you had to play via feel or via air. And I mean, people get really, really good at that, playing via feel and air. I mean, if you've seen somebody like Ayisoba play, it would blow your mind. So I think the guitar, in the sense of its ability to give you more room to musically expand your horizons, actually made a big difference. And I think it was very much embraced because musicians realized that, oh, okay, I can do even more exciting things with a guitar than I would be able to with a kologo.
So it sounds like it was a pivotal sort of shift in, the development of what becomes Highlife eventually.
Yes,
Yeah.
It was quite pivotal because I think the guitar it birthed Highlife, basically. The guitar
Wow.
birthed Highlife.
I like the way you're just making these really strong statements. Birthed Highlife. Okay. So you did mention Palmwine, the music that we know of,
Yeah.
the precursor to Highlife.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing Palmwine, I'm thinking of the drink.
Yep.
So would they be playing these like sounds, these songs in Palmwine settings?
Well, I think the name says it all because, as you know, palm wine is a favorite beverage of
Mine.
of most Ghanaians, especially if you live in a rural area.
Yeah.
And it's consumed in large quantities.
Yes, because it's so good. Yeah.
Well, so this name palm wine came about because you had these little shacks or huts that sold palm wine, and it was like the pub of the day. Once again, bringing it into like current circumstances.
Yeah.
That would be the place you would go to unwind.
Yeah.
That would be the place you'd go to meet your friends, to
Yeah.
socialize.
Yeah.
And I think, so far as meeting friends and socializing and drinking, the only element that would be missing then would be good music.
Yeah.
So you had these guys come in with the guitar. Probably you get one guy on a guitar, two vocalists, one guy on a pair of shakers, and another guy on a trap box drum. And they would basically play. And they were the stars of the moment. They would play all day, all night. So long as there was booze, they would play. So hence the name Palmwine music, because that sound became synonymous with those shacks in the rural areas where where people would go to drink.
Yeah. It sounds like a really cool time. I wish I'd been there. So who would be the stars of that period?
I think the stars of that period, if you're looking at Palmwine music and sort of the early foundation layers of our contemporary music, obviously you had HMDSeries, you had Kwaa, you had Sape and his band, you had obviously Jacob Sam and his Kumasi trio. His name was Kwame Asare, but for some reason he decided to sort of call himself Jacob Sam.
Okay.
And you had a host of others, but these people that I've mentioned are the most sort of known and the most people that were quite prolific during those times.
Okay. So I guess it's interesting to find out where we see that shift from Palmwine onto, like, we're moving towards Highlife a bit more.
Yeah.
And I know that there's like an iconic riff that people associate with Palmwine music and Highlife. I wondered if you could tell us a bit more about it.
Yes, I mean, I will gladly tell you more about Yaa Amponsah because...
So Yaa Amponsah, that's what he said.
So basically, Yaa Amponsah predates all these stars, like people like Jacob Sam and HMDSeries, in the sense that there has been sort of mentions and recollections of the origins of Yaa Amponsah over the years. So Yaa Amponsah is basically a phrase on a guitar. It's a combination of notes
Okay.
on the guitar. And these combination of notes signifies, is the signature Highlife combination of notes. And it came about, first of all, in 1918 when a group of
Cocoa.
British, when a group of British employed cocoa brokers were sent to Abena in the Ashanti region to actually buy cocoa, because that was one of Ghana's main exports, and it was very much in demand in England. So these gentlemen set up base in Abena in the Ashanti region and decided to build a little get-together place so they could actually entertain themselves. And bear in mind, despite the fact that there was traditional music, there were other forms of music alongside traditional music as well.
Like what?
We had the brass bands, and these brass bands were born out of the military. The soldiers that were stationed along the coast around that time, they had trained the locals as well, some of the soldiers that were in that regiment. So we had brass band music. It was really rife. And at one point it got adopted by the church as well. That's why every church has a brass band. That is the story of the brass band. So they had brass band music, they had European music as well, like the waltzes, the foxtrots, and the ragtime. So there was like a parallel scene, because you had these sort of Europeanized music scene going on at the same time. So these cocoa brokers set up their establishment to actually indulge in European music. Okay. And one of them had a sister.
Okay.
And apparently she was drop dead gorgeous.
I'm sure.
And her name was Yaa Amponsah. And one of these brokers as well was so smitten by her, like totally smitten by her. But apparently she was beautiful. According to all the accounts, she was drop dead gorgeous.
Okay.
And he was so smitten, he decided to write a song about Yaa Amponsah, extolling her beauty.
Wow.
Which actually led to the creation of Yaa Amponsah. But bear in mind, this is just one part of the various sort of stories or the various narratives relating to the sort of the creation of the Yaa Amponsah. But there's another bit as well here where apparently the music department in Achimota School, which is a really prestigious school in Ghana, by the way.
Yes, I know.
They refused to actually teach the Yaa Amponsah because they thought it was indecent.
But why?
It was indecent because if you listen to the lyrics carefully, it states, or it actually says, Jai Awari Ye Intri Impena, which literally meant you leave your husband and come and get with me.
Yeah, sounds good. No, I didn't say that. Don't do that.
So that was the indecent part of the lyrics. Actually, it was so indecent that in 1920, the mid-1920s, I think it was in 24, 25.
Yeah,
Achimota refused to sort of teach that as part of the music lesson. So that bit of the indecency is quite polar opposite to our Ghanaian society.
Yeah,
I mean, let's face it, it's a very conservative society.
Yeah.
And no one would condone such a thing.
Encourage that, no.
So that is also one aspect of the Yaa Amponsah. But bear in mind, musically, the Yaa Amponsah to Highlife is to what the 12-bar blues is to American music. So essentially, as a Highlife musician, if you play the guitar, you should be able to play the Yaa Amponsah on the guitar, effortlessly, because it should be inborn.
Yeah, I think, you've just touched on a number of really interesting things. The first is the role of women, really important. This beautiful lady inspires this riff that we currently still use today. I think it's interesting that the music, which was considered unpalatable for some reasons, obviously the lyrics, is now what we consider to be classic. It's part of the cornerstone of Highlife music. So it's just interesting how things change. Are you going to play us some so that we can hear the Yaa Amponsah beat? Riff, sorry.
Yes, I think at this point in time, I am going to play a Yaa Amponsah inspired song, or a Yaa Amponsah song, which is by the Ojatana Show Band, and it's got Pat Thomas on vocals. And it's got the lyrics, and the lyrics about the indecent bits that we spoke about a minute ago. It's on there as well. So yeah, if you give me a sec, we will sort of get Yaa Amponsah running for Pat Thomas and the Ojatana Show Band.
So I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I was bopping along there. Did everyone identify the Yaa Amponsah riff that was going on? If not, it goes, I'm going to attempt. Down, 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 down.
Well,
That part.
I think that's a very good attempt. At least.
That's why I'm not a singer.
at least we got there. We got there. So
Yes.
yeah, I think we all most of us probably know this song, or those who know this song know this song, and they know the riff as well. But did you know that this song was actually sampled by Paul Simon in his Rhythm of Saint CD in '91?
I didn't know that.
Well, no. On a very serious note, I mean, Paul Simon was actually composed a song, which was made essentially the Yaa Amponsah riff. So we'd say in today's term, sampled.
Okay, yeah.
He used the basic pattern, but he changed the melody and the bridge.
Okay.
So that essentially was sampling, if I should sort of put it in today's terms. And he was playing with a guy, a Cameroonian bass guitarist. He was in that drum for the recording of that CD. And he said to him, "Do you know this is a Ghanaian rhythm? You know, this is sort of a really important Ghanaian rhythm, because obviously Nguni was Cameroonian, although he was Francophone, but that's next to Nigeria. So Nguni realized the cultural significance of that Yaa Amponsah riff. So straight away, Paul Simon went to the Ghana embassy in New York and says, "Oh, I want to license this, please." And I think the copyright laws in Ghana then was that when somebody died and no one claimed the rights for the song, after 25 years, after the death of the musician, it goes to the state. So that was when he realized that obviously it was Jacob Sam that recorded it first, so he was going by that. But then the guy died yonks ago. So he actually sort of offered to pay for the copyrights to use that song. And some of those funds were actually used to set up the National Folkloric Board of Trustees.
Wow, is that the National Folklore Board that we know?
To be honest with you, I don't know what the difference is.
Okay.
But these were sort of trustees to oversee the protection of some of our cultural, not necessarily artifacts, but it could be sort of property, intellectual property IP, as well. So that Yaa Amponsah actually, with Paul Simon in the equation, actually helped to sort of create the awareness that now when you use it, you have to pay.
Well, I'd just like to caveat that and say, if it is the National Folklore Board, maybe this is the name that they used. That was the name they used then, and this is the name they use now.
I mean, it'd be interesting to find out.
I mean, if anyone who's watching this is part of the board, it would be interesting to find out if that, if you can corroborate this information. I know it's correct, but if it's the same organisation, just because there's a slight difference in the name. Because I know that the National Folklore Board have done a lot of work to sort of protect, our cultural IP.
Yeah. So I mean, that is it for Yaa Amponsah. So it's quite significant. It led to something musically in terms of business music and intellectual property protection that led to a drastic change in the way, I'd say, even Ghanaians viewed our cultural assets, because I think our cultural assets are really important. I mean, that's what you have as a person. That's what we have. Without that, I think would probably be LOST.
So I'd like to move on to the role of women. I mean, we've seen that the cornerstone of Highlife, was because of a woman. A woman was the muse with which was used to develop this riff that we all know and love. So can you talk to us, and I'm actually going to go back a bit and talk to us about the role of women in traditional music, and then we
I think
forward.
so far as women were concerned, women played a pivotal role in traditional music. Women were at certain times the forerunners musically. You know, they stood the ground, they held the field. When you look at, for instance, the Ashanti Parlance, I mean, where you come from, Mampong, I'm sure
Yeah,
is
yeah.
it's
Shout
it's
out to all the Mampong people.
it's
Grandma.
okay.
Okay, sorry.
It's sort of, it's women were empowered to actually write their own music. Women were empowered to perform their own music. So as I was saying, back to Mampong, where you come from, there is there are, I'd say there are the Nyumko groups, which in essence is a traditional sort of ensemble, mainly vocalists, so mainly singers. So you can get a troupe of Nyumko singers, anything from 10 to 20,
Yeah.
probably depending on where they've come from, which clan they've come from, etc., etc. And these women sing. It's mainly a call and response structure. But you've got men, and the men play small percussion, bells, and shakers.
Yeah.
So you might have a troupe of, say, 20 sort of 20 women,
Yeah.
and maybe 4 or 5 men.
Yeah.
And in the Nyumkro community, it's the women, as I said before, they led the sounds. You know, they wrote the music. They came up with the lyrics. They sang it the way they wanted to sing it, to actually sing it. And the arrangements were theirs. So
Women rule.
at this point in time, I mean, Nyumkro sort of groups were really, really important. When there is a royal occasion, you always get them. They sing sort of appellations to the king. When there's a funeral, when there's a wedding, you know, when someone is just giving birth to a baby. I mean, in the Ashanti region, they're very prevalent in these sort of social circumstances that
Yeah.
I've mentioned.
Yeah.
So that tells you that their position, they were really, really important in the shaping of these sounds. If you go down to the Ga area as well, you've got...
Where you're from.
Well, yes, where
Let's spread the love.
where I'm from,
Yeah.
you've got the Wulome.
Yeah.
And these Wulome are the traditional priests. They are the holders of the keepers of the knowledge.
Yeah, yeah.
They are referred to as the keepers of the knowledge, and they are respected in the community because people look up to them for certain decisions that sort of has direct impact on the community. And people look up to these women who are these female traditional priestesses, and they are a guide to the society, you know. And at the same time, they were vested in the playing of music.
Yeah.
You know, they were mainly singers as well.
Yeah.
But most of these songs that they sang had religious connotations. I mean, these two sort of ethnic groups that I've picked and actually elaborating on how the women were important musically, that tells you that, I mean, traditionally you can't take, I mean, the Bobobo women from the, what do you call it, from the Volta region,
Yeah.
you know, and you've got, when you do the depot ceremony in the Krobo area, it's led by women singing. That is a form of music, you know. You get men drumming, but they are in the minority in terms of the make of that unit producing or making that particular music.
Yeah.
You see. So that is it with the women in music.
Okay. So what I find interesting is when you look at high life today or music, Ghanaian music today, there's not as many women as there are men, you know, playing or performing. And I'm interested to know why we've seen that shift. So you talked about traditionally women played a very significant role, but that seems to have shifted over time.
I think that shift was near enough inevitable because society society always goes through change.
Yeah.
Society had changed come the 1940s into the 1950s. The space in which these women used to perform had changed drastically. Because now, if someone is having a birthday party, let's assume in 1920 or something, and it's a grand person, the person has got lots of money, there will be music in the form of traditional music. You'd have Nyunkro women. If the person is from Ga, you'd have Panlogo drummers, entertainment. But now society had changed, the space had changed. There were bands now. So if a wealthy person wanted to have a party and he wanted to show that he was the man about town,
Yeah.
he'd go and get a band.
Okay.
Not a Nyunkro group.
Yeah.
You know, so the scope in which they played changed as well. And then this is what I've just spoken about is I'd say the private sector.
Yeah.
Because this is someone's private party.
Yeah.
But the concert houses, the theatres, the CD clubs. Actually, I wouldn't say CD clubs.
Yeah.
Not all clubs are CD.
No, the clubs, the neutral clubs.
The neutral clubs.
Yeah.
The community spaces that they played in. I mean, these spaces completely changed because back in the day, it was so uncommon. It was actually frowned upon for a woman to go and say, okay, today I'm joining a band, Spice Girls. I'm joining a band. I mean, come on. What would your mother have said to you if you'd said to your mother, oh, Mum, I'm going to join a band.
Mother,
I'm not
what
going
would
to
you have
university.
said? What would you have said, Mother? Probably no. No, not probably. Definitely no.
Yes, there you go. So this is now. So imagine in the 1920s and the 1930s. Come on. Clubs are known as places of ill repute. You know, no respectable parent would sort of let the daughter run off at 2 a.m. to some dimly lit club.
Yeah.
No. So I think with changes in our music, the role of women, I'd say it breaks my heart to say it's diminished, but I'd say it's sort of shifted. But saying that, in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s up to now, we have had women.
Definitely.
We have had female musicians
Yeah.
who have sort of done very well for themselves. I mean, I can start from the back. So I can say,
tell us some.
I can say from like the 50s, you had a brilliant singer called Charlotte Dada. She used to sing for E.T. Mensa. This was probably in the 50s, like just before independence, after independence. You had the Nananum who were from Kumasi. And it was a band fronted by female singers.
Okay.
They were signed to actually George Pra, the late George Pra's Gapophone Records. You had Pat Thomas on there as well. And they were women.
Yeah.
You had Becky B, who used to sing with Smart and Cancer. She did very well for herself. You had Mum B. Who used to sing for Nanampedi. So as you can see on the picture, if you can read carefully, it says the golden voice. The golden voice.
The golden voice of Mother Ghana.
Yes, and that is Patrick. Anyway, thank you very much, Patrick. Patrick is our production engineer for today.
Yes.
Or actually, he's our production engineer for the whole series, and he's in love with Mumbi already. So as you can see from your screen, that is a very rare 45 cut by Nana Kwame Ampedu. I'm sure this was late 60s. And you can see how Nana Ampedu put her on a pedestal. The golden voice of mother, the golden voice of Mother Ghana.
And it's interesting because we know that Pat Thomas is the golden voice
of Pat Thomas was Africa.
Yeah, it's Africa,
Yeah.
Pat Thomas. But,
Yeah.
you know, we have a female golden voice.
Yeah, and I'm surprised that I'm sure this record in particular was not a hit, but I'm sure it was. To me, it's a hit. On the other side, on the flip side, there's a song called Anuma San Trophy.
Oh wow!
That is a great album, and it's got Mambi singing on it as well. So that is it for Nana Mpedu to actually go to the extent of printing the name of the singer and giving her a title.
Yeah.
That tells you that, look, the role of women had diminished, but those that were in the game were doing well. They were doing very well. I mean, you have like Asabia Cropper, and even today, who have we got today?
Well, I was going to say the late Ebony, you know.
Yes.
We have Wendy Shea, don't we?
Yes, we do. So, I mean, I think the role of women it hasn't necessarily diminished over time. I think it's gradually shifting, and I hope to see like an all-female Ghanaian band one day.
That would be great. If you're out there, shout us out.
Yeah, I think all-female band
Yes.
playing Highlife.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, so yes, all-female band playing Highlife in Ghana. We want you.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So moving on, let's explore like from where you left, where we started off. We had the origins of Highlife music, the traditional music, how that has influenced Highlife music, Palmwine music, and then moving forward, the role of women. We've talked about that as well. But I'm interested to find out what happens after that, because we have this situation where a lot is changing. We're moving closer and closer to Independence Day, aren't we?
Yep.
So how is the music being shaped?
Well, I mean, I am a great fan of women in music.
Yeah.
So even before we talk about how the music is shaped, I'm going to play a song by a female, sort of a female-led troupe, to pay homage to women in music.
Okay.
This is actually coming from This is actually coming from my neck of the woods. It's a Ga folkloric track, which is obviously we come from the coast.
Yeah.
So it's got a lot of sunny coastal vibes to it. I mean, the
Okay.
Fanties might say the same, but
Yeah.
one second, let me grab the sleeve and I'll show you. So this is the Wolome. So you remember I spoke about female fetish, female traditional religion.
Knowledge keepers.
Exactly, priestesses. So the Wolome were actually knowledge keepers. I've spoken about them, and as I said, they were amazing singers. And their music is quite synonymous with the Ga people along the coast. It encompasses everything. It encompasses the party style. It encompasses the melancholic style. And it encompasses the educational, edutainment style as well. So what I'm going to play now is called Mawiega.
Which means?
I will speak Ga. I thought you understood it.
No. I mean...
Okay. Okay,
That's
one
all I
sec.
can
Let me just get set up.
Shika mentable kumae Oya foi intable kumae Agable kuma bakula mabi Mabi yo yo Mabi yo yo
If you've just joined us, my name is Abena Serwaa. I'm the founder of AKADi magazine, and I'm sitting with Bernard Johnson-Tackie, who's a vinyl record DJ and also the creative director of the GoldenStool project. So we're sharing some insight into Highlife music, early Highlife music, how it started, Palmwine music. So if you've missed the beginning, don't worry, we'll be sharing it. It won't be live, but you'll be able to see it. And if you've been with us from the beginning, thank you. You know, I hope you're enjoying it and learning lots. I will be and taking notes because we'll be testing you later on. So Bernard, you were just playing a really beautiful track just now from the Wulume women of the Ga area.
Yeah. This is from my neck of the woods.
Yeah.
And this is actually some people refer to this as a form of Palmwine music.
Okay.
Because essentially every instrument is traditional. Every instrument is acoustic.
Yeah.
And the only sort of external instrument is the guitar. So it's basically a troupe of women singing, the Wulume singing. There's one man playing a guitar and assorted percussion.
Yeah.
And you get this really full rounded sound. So you can sort of compare it as sort of an offshoot of Palmwine music, because this is the Ga vibe.
Yeah.
It's not the sort of Cape Coast sort of sort of vibe of the Yaa Amponsah style. It's more of a Ga style. So it's quite unique. Great percussionist as well.
Yeah.
Really great percussionist.
Yeah. It's really nice to sort of see the difference and hear the difference. And you're
Yep.
very good at explaining it. So
Am I?
yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you talked about we talked about the introduction of like the foreign instrument, I'm going to call it, the guitar.
Yep.
But let's move forward and let's talk about how, you know, Palmwine music, early Highlife music, you know, continued to evolve.
Yes. Highlife music, now we're calling it Highlife, evolved because as time went on, these European ballrooms that had local musicians playing the waltzes and the ragtimes and all the sort of the Western sort of sounds, decided to incorporate little bits of sort of traditional sounds here and there. So they could rearrange a tune and add a bit of an apatampa beat to it, or they could rearrange a song and sort of incorporate very rootsy traditional melodies. So what happened was the local rhythms started seeping into these places of exquisite behavior, into these places where wealth and opulence sort of dwelled, and it was just opulence, as you said. So it got to a point where people could hear the local rhythms being played in these grand ballrooms, but they were like, hey, we can't go in there. We just can't, because you only didn't have to be the right type, i.e. if you were black, you had to be elite.
Okay.
You know, or wealthy. One of these two.
Yeah.
So it got to a point where, well, you could hear the local rhythms, but if you were not wealthy enough, or if you were not in that wealth bracket, no chance. I mean, you needed a bow tie,
Okay.
a tailcoat, a top hat.
Wow.
You know, probably a little cane just to.
What?
Come on, it was like going to a ball in Bond Street in the 30s.
Oh my God.
Or 40s. You had, and the women, there was no point in wearing a dress. You had to wear a gown.
Oh, I see, a gown. I guess you had to have the gloves as well.
Well, the full works.
Oh my God.
I mean, if you wanted to smoke, you had to have like a little thing.
Oh, the cigarette holder. Oh.
You actually needed to be part of it. So the majority of the people thought, good God, these people are really leading the high life. I mean, look at them. Look at the way they're dressed. I mean, look at the car that dropped them off. I mean, so that led to the coining of the word high life.
High life.
Because it got to a point where the traditional sound got moved to these grand ballrooms, and the man in playing music in the Palmwine shack, no chance. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, you needed to even be dressed the right way to book a table.
Okay.
You know, so that was when we also had a little divergence in Highlife music, whereby we had the guitar bands
Yeah.
and the dance bands.
Okay. But you'll be going into more detail about that.
I mean, the next generation will be talking about
Yeah.
the next episode,
Yeah.
which is the next gen, will be talking about dance bands.
Okay.
So we'll get to sort of elaborate more on the bands that were existing at that time, who was the leader, what hits they had,
Yeah.
what effects they had on the population, countries that they toured in, etc., etc. So
Yeah.
we'll be taking a more granular look at sort of the second generation guys, like the Ramblers and the Black Beats. We'll be taking a
Okay.
look at them in detail in the second episode. But this was when actually the division started bubbling.
Okay.
You know, as soon as our sound entered into the ballroom, there was this
Divide.
there was this right split. But apparently there were some really hot bands back in the day.
Like who?
Really, really, really hot bands. You had the Accra Orchestra. You had the Jazz Kings, and then you had the Cape Coast Sugar Babies.
Wow, the
Yeah.
Sugar Babies.
Yeah. I mean, they were the in band. They were the in band if you wanted to hear
Yeah,
High Life
yeah.
in a
If you were rich enough.
exactly to hear it in a ballroom and actually get to experience the opulence, as you said. So that brings us to that divide, and I think we've near enough sort of had over the past hour and a half, Patrick.
Hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, over the past hour and 20 minutes, we have sort of covered quite a few big topics, and it's been quite good to have you as well.
Oh, thank you.
Actually picking my brain, because it's quite interesting for someone to ask you questions that sort of
Yeah,
come
well, there's
naturally.
a lot going on under that hat, you see. Or is it a beanie? So I'm interested to know, and I'm sure our viewers are as well, can you talk to us about the structure? Like, when do we get to a stage where, you know, the first record has been cut, or, you know, we've got these big name producers or musicians
Yeah.
that are,
Yeah.
you know, world
Yeah.
famous?
Yeah. I think, I mean, between late 1800s to probably the 1940s, mid 40s, I don't think we had a localized, like, properly structured musical industry. The structures were provided by mainly Western companies. You know, it was these Western companies that invested in recordings. They invested in distribution and probably even in certain cases. For instance, in the case of the Kumasi trio with
Yeah.
Jacob Sam, it was released on Zonophone.
Okay.
And Zonophone and HMV
Yeah.
were two of
His
the main...
Majesty's Voice.
Exactly. They were two of the main record labels that were operating in Ghana at that point in time. So in 1928, Zonophone actually paid the shipping passage. That's what they used to call it back in the day, because there was no aeroplanes.
Yeah.
So Zonophone paid the shipping passage for the Kumasi trio to come to London to record probably the first batch
Yeah.
of Ghanaian music.
Wow.
The sort of the first batch of
Yeah.
collection of Ghanaian music amongst other musicians. You had someone like George Ayingo as well, who recorded around that same time.
Yeah.
So Xenophone
Yeah.
provided that space in terms of music production for the early musicians. But as time went on, Ghanaians became more astute, and we had our own labels, we had our own pressing plants, which we'll talk about as well. Labels and pressing plants, that was quite essential for the takeoff of Highlife in the 60s and the 70s.
Yeah.
The plants that we had that were Ghanaian owned
Yeah.
and Ghanaian run
Yeah.
had a massive impact on the sound of the 60s, of the late 60s and the 70s. So in terms of structures, once again, Zonophone and HMV. But as time went on, these Europeans still carried on doing recordings, as I said, until we were able to stand on our feet. But Zonophone in itself as a company has been through a few hands.
Really?
Yep. It's been through at least, beg your pardon, maybe 3-4 hands. So it was acquired by Columbia.
Recognizable name.
It was acquired by Columbia, then EMI,
Another one.
and now it's Warner Brothers.
Isn't that funny?
Not Warner, they call it Warner Music.
Yeah,
sorry.
Warner Music.
Warner
I mean,
Music.
these are all familiar names. Do you know what I mean?
Well, because they've been in the music industry since forever.
I know, but it's this idea that we'd associate it with our, indigenous Highlife music. So I just find that really fascinating.
Yeah. So the parent is past hand. So I'm sure like some of the Zonophone original masters would have gone into the hands of Warner Music now. And guess who is signed to Warner Music?
Like currently?
Currently. I can tell you.
Yeah, go
it's
on.
Burna Boy.
Burna Boy.
Burna Boy
Wow.
is signed to Warner Music.
Yeah.
So that tells you the connection or the how long they've had their finger in the pie.
Yeah.
It's been like,
Deep pie.
it's been such a long time that they've got their fingers in the pie, and I mean that tells you the worth of our music, because if an entity is willing to still go ahead and invest money after all these years, that tells you that there's something about our music, there's something about African music that is so important, that draws in people that have got nothing to do with sort of African culture, and these people pump so much money.
Yeah. I think, just listening to you over these past sort of hour and a bit, what I find really fascinating is the outside influences that have continued to shape Highlife music. So if we go back, we talked about the guitar. We talked about the Caribbean calypso. I think there were calypso musicians.
We'll talk about calypso, Caribbean, not necessarily calypso.
Oh, okay,
but
Caribbean.
But yeah, I mean, calypso was in vogue around that time. So yeah, you can surely say Caribbean.
The crew, say, merchants, sorry. We've talked about the actual structures of the music, the brass band. All of these were outside influences that have helped to shape the music. And at the sort of, base of that, if you got your first record cut in England by English people, and, the actual record labels that have been sort of at the cornerstone of it are American, British, whatever. I think all of that is really, really interesting, that we've had these structures there. Can you talk to us about who the main players were? You have mentioned Jacob Sam.
Yes, the main players, you had like really obscure ones like Sape and his band.
Yeah.
H.E. Baini, Kwaa Kanta. I think there was this other guy as well who was called E.K. Nyame, because E.K. Nyame is like really, really important in the first generations, because he came from the Palmwine Highlife background, and he was one of the first musicians to go electric.
Ooh. What do you mean, go electric?
As in electric guitar.
Oh, wow.
Electric guitar.
Wow.
So E.K. Nyame as well, he was quite prominent with the first generations, with a lot of the first generation musicians, but he was actually the first one to actually go electric. So to actually incorporate an electric guitar into Highlife.
Okay.
So those were some of the major players
Yeah.
around that time.
Yeah. So if anyone has this this original record that Jacob Sam,
The Yaa Amponsah
Yeah,
record.
yeah.
Yes, it would be on Zonophone.
Okay, because I'm sure that would be worth a pretty penny, wouldn't it?
Well, it'd be more than a pretty penny.
And is it one in your collection? 'Cause
No,
I know.
I mean, no, not at all. I mean, there's no way I could sort of own that sort of record because that's from 19. How much?
Yeah, I know.
1920. This
Yeah.
is early 30s record,
Yeah, but-
1920s. It's shellac. You know, it's a 78 RPM shellac. Those ones that crack,
Okay.
they can sort of shatter
Yeah.
when they fall.
Okay.
And that is a museum piece. That's priceless.
Okay.
That is absolutely priceless.
Well, I still want to see it and maybe hear it if anyone has it. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that'd be quite good actually. That'd be really, really good.
Okay.
Okay. So I don't know if anybody wants to ask me some questions.
Let me have a look.
Okay. Hold
No.
on. So in the meantime, still talking about traditional music, I am going to play one track whilst we sort of check our message portals as
The lovely Abena is
that
going
is
to check.
as she is doing now, and we will get back to you shortly. In the meantime, I'm going to play King Ayiso, but please don't go anywhere. Stand by.
Arotenga, medota kele.
Really hypnotic, almost awesome music there. I don't know if you saw us bopping in the background there. Could you talk us through a little bit more about Are You Sober? His sound is so amazing.
Well, I mean, you cannot sort of not bop to this.
Yeah.
This is music from the north. It's music that I've always been intrigued by, to be honest with you, because I think, once again, talking about recorded traditional music, you hardly get any sort of really good recordings from the north as you would get with some of the field recordings from like the Ashanti region or maybe along the coast. So, I mean, Are You Sober sound is meant to be the roots of funk.
Wow.
You
He's
know?
done it again, people.
It's no, seriously, it's the roots of funk. I mean, look at the way he goes, wow.
Yeah, no,
That's
that's
James Brown
true.
for you.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more about that when we talk about when we get to the third gen.
Yeah.
When it gets a bit more sort of James Brownish. We'll talk about James Brown and the effect he had on Ghanaian musicians as well. But that would be in the third episode. Sorry, I keep sort of jumping forwards.
Well,
but
this is to give people a flavour of what's to come, and
Yeah.
hopefully you'll stick with us.
yeah. So yeah, that's Are You Sober sound. It's hypnotic. I mean, this can send you into a mad trance.
Yeah, now you can hear it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So I think what I wanted to do was share some questions that we've had from you lovely people who've been watching us. We have one question from Charles in Birmingham, and he is asking, where is this question? Oh gosh, he's got a few here. Where is the biggest body of public and private collection of Highlife music? Bernard.
Hello, could you say that again, please?
I said, where is the biggest body of public and private collection of Highlife music? This comes from Charles in Birmingham.
Oh, right. Oh, hello, Charles. Bernard here. Anyway, when you're talking about the largest collections, I mean, I don't know how to or where to start. First of all, you could look at formats. Is it vinyl? Is it digitized music? Is it in tape format? So it's quite hard to actually say, oh, I've got the biggest collection of Highlife music. But the point is, I know the GBC,
which is the Ghana
Broadcasting Corporation.
Yeah.
They have got probably one of the best vinyl collections for not only Highlife, but all sorts of sounds, like traditional sounds and neo-traditional sounds. They have a very big library. Although there was a fire that I heard destroyed most of the video reels, so i.e. most of the films that were shot in the 60s. I remember this band when I was growing up in Ghana. It was not a band, it was a program called The Bandstand.
Do you remember it, people?
It was called The Bandstand, and I mean, if we could get hold of those sort of reels, that would be amazing. But in terms of the largest collection, I mean, it's scattered. There are people in Europe that boast or claim to have the whole Ghanaian discography. I mean, I'm not going to sort of really challenge that to some extent, but I think in terms of who has the most, if we look inward, I'd go for the GBC, which is the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation.
And what about private collectors?
Private collectors, I'd say most of the leading private collectors are in Europe.
Okay, then.
Most of our treasured records, majority are still resting on the shelves of collectors in Europe, I'm afraid. So Charles, probably you need to start buying some records, and then we can come together and try and build a physical and a digital library.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to move over to some comments that we've had on Facebook, and we'd like to thank everyone who's commented and stayed with us. So Epiphania is actually coming to correct you there. right? So Epiphania is saying that there is actually an all-women band. They're called the Lipstick Band Ghana. Have you heard of them?
No,
Bad.
the lipstick band. I'm gonna Instagram them now. Where's
Yeah,
my
you
phone?
you can. So they're an all-female band in Ghana, and they also play some high life and hip life. I know you love your hip life too.
I love my hip life. Yes.
Yeah. But she was also saying that the Yaa Amponsah, it's just reminded her. I think her parents had that record, the one that you played.
I think that record, that Ojat. What's your friend's name again? Or what's
Epiphania.
Epiphania.
Yeah.
I think that Ojatana record was a bestseller. I think we didn't show the sleeve, but let me show. If you're still watching, let me show you the sleeve. One second.
Epiphania. She is. I can see it's green.
So.
Can you see?
Which one is it? Is that one? Patrick, yeah, don't switch. Should be there now. So this is the sleeve. This is a classic. I mean, growing up, this was constantly on my dad's turntable.
Oh, that's nice.
Yep.
Okay, so we have another comment from El Devo Child. So thoroughly enjoying this and learning so much. Thank you for this treasure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And stay with us. This is just the beginning. We've got a really long way to go.
Okay. And then also Claudia George, I think she really enjoyed the Wulume that you played, the classic tune.
Yep.
Yeah. And then Paulina in Cancer, she's just commented on, I think you mentioned Julia Kine.
Yep.
Yeah. From the E.T. Mensa band. So she's loving that.
And what did Nia Ite said, Daughters of Glorious Jesus. Yes, Nia Ite, please forgive me. How can we forget Daughters of Glorious Jesus?
Yeah, so if you have any more questions, as we have said, this is one of 5 episodes. So if we're not able to answer your question now, we will answer. Well, I won't be answering it because I don't know, but Bernard will be answering your questions in subsequent episodes if we are not able to answer it now, if we don't get a chance. I'm not seeing anything come up right now, but what I wanted to do was just drop our Instagram handles and encourage you to keep following us, because we will be dropping the next episode when, Bernard? 11th of October, we'll be dropping the next one.
It was originally meant to be
2 weeks.
every 2 weeks,
Yeah.
but because of work commitments, we really cannot make it sort of the 2 weeks work this time. But yeah, 11th of September.
October.
Oh, beg your pardon, people. 11th of October.
Yeah.
We will be back with episode 2, Second Generation.
Yeah, we'll be talking about the second generation. So what we will be doing is just dropping our links for you to continue to follow us. You know, please follow Bernard. He's an amazing DJ. He's got a wealth of knowledge. I've learnt so much from him. So his handle on Instagram is the GoldenStool Project. On Facebook, it's GoldenStool Project. For myself on Instagram, it's AKADi Mag. And then also it's the same on Facebook, which you're on. And then on Twitter, it's AKADi Magazine, just because I like to be a bit different and make it longer. Yes. So from us, it's goodbye. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. I hope you've learned something. I definitely have. And we will be back telling you more about our culture and our beautiful music. Sorry.
Thank you very much, AKADi Magazine. I think when you approached me with this idea, I thought, this is a bit, can I? But yeah, I think this is going to be a brilliant journey and a sort of a great learning curve for me as well. So thank you very much. And yes, I think it's going to be next episode. But I'm going to try and play some music before we go. Since I haven't got a headset, I'm going to try and figure out the track.
What?
So she can say your final good. I'm still going to play Are You Sober again because we're so loving that northern vibe.
Yeah, and I don't think we hear enough from up north. What do you think?
You're totally right.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, we have to go up north one day.
Yeah. And please, if you have any questions, anything you want to ask Bernard, any points that you want to make, you know, it was really good of Epiphania to sort of let us know that there is actually an all-female high life band. So please share your questions, your points with us. And we'll be back, and hopefully we will continue to learn and celebrate our culture. So thank you. And thank you, Patrick, for all your behind the scenes work.
Yes. We can't forget Patrick for amazing technical producer.
Yes.
And Dr. Sarah McGuinness for all her technical sound advice as well. We can't forget that. So yes, thank you very much for watching, and thank you. I'm just going to try and find that track.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to Highlife Music Deconstructed.